Hello, friends. This is Daniel Slocum. I work in product success here at ServiceNow. I want to talk to you today about the enterprise asset management product, specifically the lease management functions for lease-end. We are currently looking at the enterprise asset workspace, the enterprise asset estate module of the enterprise asset workplace. And down here on the right side, roughly about halfway down the screen, if I were to show you the whole screen, is the lease contract expiration in 90 days widget. If we were to click into this widget, we'd see 0 records meeting that criteria. What this does is runs a current tally of the number of contracts and assets that are expiring within 90 days. This gives a asset manager the opportunity to click right in to see which contracts are expiring and which assets need to be dispositioned. Much like this asset warranty expirations for the year, which is reflecting 460, the lease contract expiration widget would show when those assets, when those contracts and the assets are up for expiration. However, this demo data that I'm showing you here, all the contracts are new. This is a new product. The demo data is new, and the lease end on all of our demo contracts are in 2023, and it's currently August 8th, 2022. So we don't have any of the match criteria, what thus is showing 0. Never fear though, when you use this product, deploy this product, or leverage this product for your own asset management, this will reflect accurately. Let's bump into the lease management itself module and take a look at some of our lease contracts. One thing to note when deploying this product, if you have any lease contracts tied to either the asset plugin or the hardware asset management product, those will be visible here, although you shouldn't be dispositioning those. All of these are here and they're visible because they share the same base contract table, the AST_contract table. In enterprise asset management, however, the enterprise asset management contracts that are associated with leased assets for fleet and other types of enterprise assets, then those are the ones that we want to manage here. So let's just pop into this Toyota Financial Services fleet contract. We have several attributes that you'd expect to see. The contract model is leased, the state is active, it shows the vendor, shows the contract number, who the local administrator is for it, who approved the contract here at your company XYZ, the start date, the end date, some description of what it is. We also show in this related list the assets covered. In this case, we have 5 Toyota Camrys that are under lease, and it shows the approval history, expense lines, child contracts, etc. If we've renewed this at any point, it'll show the contract history or extended it. So let's jump right into showing you the lease process, the lease end process. We can, using these UI actions at the top, we can cancel the contract. We can resave details about the contract if we've updated the description. We can also begin the lease end process. So we're going to click that. We get this warning that says, hey, do you really want to do this? And yes, of course we do. Note now that once we have clicked the UI action to begin the lease end process, that the assets covered related list changes to lease end assets. And here we need to disposition each one of the individual assets and identify how we want to handle it as part of the lease end process. So looking at the first record here, we can see that we have an asset task. We're in the planning stage. So we'll pop into this asset task and we'll identify how we want to handle the disposition of this asset at the end of the lease. The lease action attribute is required, and we can choose return, extend, or buyout. We're going to return this asset. And once we've done that, we updated the lease action. Once we've done that, we close the task. And the workflow then takes us to the next step in the flow, which would then be to collect the asset from wherever it may be. if it's in use by somebody, we need to go get that back. If it's in a stock room, or in this case fleet, it would be in a motor pool. We would then go out and collect it and bring it into wherever we're going to return it from, and that would be consistently for various types of assets, stock room, or in this case the motor pool, whatever location that would be. So let's open up this task. And we have collected the asset. We're going to update the asset collected to yes. And it requires a stock room. And so you can create your stock rooms, you name them however you like. In this case, we're going to choose Enterprise Asset Management Stockroom East. If you've set up your motor pools as stock rooms, then they might say Enterprise Asset Management Motor Pool 1, 2, 3, whatever happens to be. And we will close this task. Note that we had some information alerts. We didn't have any warnings. That's with the blue, whereas I just clicked away from them. All right, so continue on here. We have, note, this activity log is actually showing the different stages as we process through them. We are now needing to move on to the next task. So we open up this task. And again, we continue the process. We've prepared the asset, we've cleaned it, we've returned it to its original configuration under which it came to us, and all the parts and pieces are there. So now we close the task. And once again, we can refresh the list. So upon completion of the preparation task, we now have the shipment task. In this shipment task, we have the opportunity here to identify, again, work in progress, close complete. We need to identify the ship date. We'll choose today. The carrier, whoever it is that's coming to pick this up. And some sort of tracking number. You can add notes if you wish. You can compose your own activity information here as well. We're going to close the task. Refresh the list. And then that organization to whom we shipped the vehicle back as part of the lease end will then give us a confirmation that it has been returned. Here we are going to simply identify that we have a return confirmation. There is no settlement information due. If there were settlement information, we'd add that dollar value here. If there was a cost associated with a charge that applies at lease end due to damages or some of the components were missing. In this case, we're saying no. And we close the task. So here the task is marked as close complete automatically by the workflow, whereas I marked them myself on a couple of these tasks as we move through it. The workflow is prescriptive. It does come back and mark these as close complete. You can choose as you're working on this specific task to mark that is in progress. And when you close it, it will automatically mark as close complete. Let's go back to the details and refresh this list. We can see that the first one, the stage is now completed. It has a lease action of returned, which is what we did. The state of the asset is now in retired, and the substate is lease return, identifying that this vehicle is now a retired asset, and we returned it to the vendor. We can also look into the asset itself. If we go into the asset itself, we can see that the asset state and status have updated, and the information here is is also changed as we worked through the flow for the return. So the workflows automatically update the assets that are related to them that are being processed, so that you can save clicks. You don't have to have any of the people doing the work for you have to navigate into the assets themselves and update them. Okay, so I have reset my screens and I've resumed recording, and I wanted to show you now what this happens, how this process works with the different subflow, and that would be the lease buyout. So we've opened up a second one of our lease assets that need dispositioning and returning, and we are going to select the lease buyout function for it. So contract asset tasks, the planning stage, and here we're going to lease action buyout. We're going to close the task. We're looking at our contract asset tasks now. We will refresh the screen. Our planning phase is closed complete, and the buyout is now open. Here we are requesting buyout. We have, we're talking to our vendor at this point. We're asking the vendor what the buyout cost would be. We identify a buyout date. The vendor says the cost will be umpty frats. In this case, umpty frats will convert that to some US dollar amount, and let's say it's $20,000. It's automatically being added to a purchase order and a purchase order line, which will be created as part of the closed parts of this task. And we close this task. Oh, the date did not save. Let's save the date. I must have hit cancel instead of okay. All right, great. So we'll close the error message and we close the task. The activity is updating in the background there. I don't know if you saw that. So now it says state close complete was open for this particular task. We need to look at this purchase order information. We cannot close this task unless the purchase order itself has been marked received. So let's open the purchase order. The purchase order has various information that most purchase orders would, as you can see: shipping information, terms, conditions, descriptions, has the purchase order line, all pre-filled out by the workflow. And we can here we can simply click the order and submit the order directly to the lease vendor, and this will go, if you've integrated with your ERP system, this will go into that for communication and payment. And we then, once we get confirmation back that it has indeed been processed, we mark it as received. Typically in hardware asset management or the asset plugin, this would automatically create new assets. This will not do that. What it will do is it will change the information on the existing asset to reflect that it was a lease buyout. So let's mark it as received. We do have a link back to the asset here on the asset tab, which you would anticipate. We also have a receiving slip showing that it was received. So we're going to bounce back over here into our buyout details because this has been completed, and we can now mark this buyout confirmation as yes. We can close this task. We'll click on details here. Correction. We will refresh the screen and all the tasks are closed complete. So going back to the details pane, we will now refresh this, and we can see that this asset has been bought out, and we can click into the asset and we can see that it's still marked as in use. And on the activity tab, we can see that the asset has been bought out as part of asset task, number 10011, and we can then also link to the expense line, back to the information of that buyout purchase order, and we can see that follow the audit trail back to how it was paid for. So that was buyout, and we've also talked about return. And so the final use case would then be an extension of the lease contract. So I've once again reset my screen back to the primary contract. We're looking at the lease-end assets list, and we're going to take this asset T10146 and we're going to extend it. How do we do that? Well, much like we did the other tasks. The subflow for lease extension is now active in the background. We're identifying the contract on the pardon me, on the asset itself, and we can see the contract as a tasks here. So we'll click into the first one, in which we have to again choose the lease action, and here we're going to extend the contract, close the task, task is closed complete. Go back to the contract asset tasks list, refresh the list. It shows that the extension task now is open. Click into that extension task. Note that has created a purchase order in our purchase order line with which to track the expenses. I will just randomly throw a number out here. Obviously, you would contact the vendor and identify the value for the dates. This will start today, and we will extend it through 2025. Click OK. Looks like I didn't quite click that just right. We'll mark it 2025. And we will close the task. And much like the buyout task, we have to then go into the purchase order information and make sure that it's closed out properly. So we'll open up the purchase order, submit the order. Once it goes through all the processes of submission, payment, etc., we can mark it as received. The purchase order is received. The assets link has been updated. We have a receiving slip, and we can go back to the task, and we can we can go back to the details and look at our asset. There we go. And we can refresh. So now the extension confirmation is open. We can confirm that the vendor has received payment and that we have confirmation of that payment. Mark it as yes. Close the task. And here's our task list once again, and it is marked close complete. And let's go look at that asset. So what happened to it? It was previously on a contract, and we've moved it. It was on this TFS 1001, and we have extended it now. So what is it on now, and how does that look? What is it done in the background? What is the subflow completed for us in the background? Well, the activity log shows that we have received a extension purchase order for the contract, and our contracts tab now shows that we have 2 contracts that are linked to this specific asset. And so the first one was the original contract. It says now it's completed. The action at the end of that completed lease was to extend it. The state was active expiring, and then we have this brand new contract. It is showing Vehicle Fleet East 2020 extension, bearing the same name, bearing an EXT prefix, EXT underscore prefix to show that it was an extension. And this contract is currently open. And so if we were to click into this contract, it would show us that lease end date of 2025. 2025-0808. So there you have it. Those are the three primary use cases for lease end under enterprise asset management. So now that I have shown you how to work through the lease end flows for the three primary use cases of returning an asset, extending the lease contract, or buying out the lease contract, I want to show you the contract form itself. This is important because you don't want to get the cart before the horse. I've shown you how to handle the end of it, but I haven't shown you the beginning. And so there are some key attributes that need to be populated into a lease contract. And those values are the contract number, which is mandatory. And in those prefixes that we had before I identified the vendor, I'm going to make something up here related to my initials. And this will be demo lease contract. Something is wonky with my keyboard. Sorry about that. We need to have a start date, an end date, an administrator, and an approval. So let's click on the administrator, and good old Abraham Lincoln, who we love and as part of our demo information. And here we're going to choose me as the approver. So on a parent contract, that is something you can choose, not required at the beginning. The start date is today. The end date would be sometime in the future. I'll go ahead and choose today and simply edit the year value. And we'd have some description information, although not required. So the primary values that are required are the contract number, the start date, the end date, the contract administrator, and the approver. The renewal information is here, the financial information is here, typically the payment information. Obviously you want some of that information, right? It's not required to submit for review, however. Now we need to add information to the assets covered. This is a listing of all the assets that are covered by the specific contract. You can filter by asset type. It's already pre-filtered here by the contract information, and it's showing that there's nothing related to it at the moment. So we need to add some. It's something to keep in mind that you cannot add the following type of assets: child assets, consumables, assets that are not enterprise assets, assets that are currently part of another contract or process that are such as disposable, loaner, etc., retired or missing assets, or of the multi-component type assets, the user assembled assets. And I've created a model video that talks through those. So we're going to pick the top three here and just throw them in. Top four, can't count. We have some assets covered. We need to save this. And we look at our details, and we have our assets covered, contract history, approval history. It's requested of me at the moment. And once this is approved, then the contract is in force, and then we disposition it, the assets that are part of it, just like we showed you at the beginning. So right here from this approval history form, portion of the form on the contract itself, I can click in here into the state and choose to approve it. Once I approve it and save the record, look at the details of the asset, the detail of the contract, and we can refresh the screen. And now we can see that this is enforced. We can cancel the contract, add descriptive information, add a business owner or parent contract if there happens to be one. We can save that. Or we can, as we did before, begin the lease-end process if we're nearing the end of the term. I want to show you a couple other things around lease-end processing here in enterprise asset management, and that is some of the guardrails that are in place. There are various client scripts that manage the visibility of certain attributes and functions of the forms, but more importantly, I think that if you're developing or if you're an admin, managing the enterprise asset management application for a group of end users in your organization, or if you're delivering this product for the first time, or maybe the second to third time, but this is an important bit of information. What are the business rules that are help keep this product on the rails and this lease management flow governed and functioning properly? And so we have various business rules here. This is I've filtered this on purpose to the primary business rules that are part of the process. And then I want to show you the flows in Flow Designer. And we have a parent flow, the common lease contract expiration, and this is what gets triggered when we click the begin lease end process button, UI action, button type action on the form. This gets triggered, and related to that, we have 3 subflows, and the subflows are common leased asset buyout, common leased asset extension, and common leased asset return. And those are the 3 subflows that we traveled through and processed when we did the 3 dispositions at the beginning of this video. So I want to thank you for taking the time to watch it. I hope you learned something, and until next time when I create another video for you, have a great day.